Hi, everybody. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good night, good day, aloha. Hi. So you are muted by default because we have a lot of people who sign up for this event, and sometimes we have some technical issues. But we would love for you, if you want to introduce yourself on the chat. If you don't want to do it, you also don't have to do it. But, you know, in case you want to say something, please use the chat for now. We have already about 54 people who are slowly coming in, and we're going to wait for a few more. Hi, Barry. Hi, Adela, Anand, Minpo. Good to see you guys. Fabian from Houston. Hi, Albania. Hi, Adela from Albania. Nice to meet you. Fabian, what time is in Houston? 8 a.m.? Thank you for waking up with us. Hi from India. Hi from Singapore. Hi, Jaden. So we are all in this panel calling you from Malaysia. I think we're almost neighbors, if I think about it, except for Matthew, who's calling us from Philippines. Hi, Peru. Hi, Manila, Japan. Wow. Ghana. This is such an international group, guys. Hi, Varun. Ivan, hi. All right, so hi from China and Nigeria and Rwanda. Wow, this is amazing. Should we call this the United Nations of Action Learning? I think so, huh? All right, so once again, keep in mind that by default, everybody's muted, but if you want to say something, please just say in the chat, I want to say something. We're just muting it because last time we had the Zoom problem and some of the Zoomers crashed. Hi from Indonesia. But without further ado, I want to start this session. Welcome to Asia School of Business. Welcome to my house. Welcome to Ashley's house. Welcome to Chiho's house. Welcome to Matthew's house. We're super excited to have you here with us today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Loredana Padurean. I'm the Faculty Director for Action Learning. I'm also the Faculty Director for Innovation and Entrepreneurship here at ASB. I'm Associate Dean and a few other things in the free time. All the three students that you see today in the panel are my poor little students, my victims. You know, some of them survived, some of them are in the process of surviving. Some of them will live to tell the stories of living through, right, Ashley? So why are we getting here together today? We love to talk about action learning. We think that action learning is the thing, right? It's one of the reasons why people come to ASB. It's one of the reasons why people sign up for this very, very unconventional and extraordinary action learning program. We also think that maybe it's one of the reasons why we got so many nominations and awards in innovation. And I think many of you who sign up to be part of the class of 23 already, or even later on, you might be interested in action learning. So this is how we're going to do things. We have three students. Actually, I'm going to keep calling you my student until we are both 102 years old, okay? The age of the queen. So you once a student, always a student. But my three students come from different walks of action learning and of life. I'm going to ask them only 2 questions each. And then I'm going to keep an eye on the chat. If anybody has questions specifically for any of my students or for me, we'll address the questions. But mostly what we are all looking for, all 4 of us, we're looking for a highly interactive session. And if anybody's already part of the MBA of 2023 or 24 or whatever else, feel free to let us know. Tell us what you're looking forward to. What are you afraid of? What would you like to know more about? Okay, we have exactly 55 minutes for this session. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to ask in very quickly for Ashley first, Matthew and Chiho to introduce themselves in a few keywords, and maybe use one keyword to describe themselves, which is one of my favorite things to do. Hi, Ashley.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley. I graduated last year. Crazily enough, 2 days ago was my first year anniversary in Socar. I got my job literally like the weekday after I graduated, because I didn't actually get to properly graduate, but all good. Managed to get a job during the pandemic. Super grateful for that. I'm currently working as chief of staff in Socar. So yeah, nice to meet everyone. Wherever you guys are, hope to see you guys actually in person in future.
Actually, what's the one word that defines you?
I would say efficient. I'm like a super like efficient driven person. I love things fast.
You're a machine. That's why she's a chief of staff today, right? All right, Matthew, how about you? In a few words, would you like to introduce yourself and then use one word to define who you are?
Sure. Hi, Matthew. I'm from the Philippines. I'm actually an entrepreneur, so I have my own business here. I'm actually in the enterprise tech space. So for a living, what we do is we help companies adopt technology and automate their business. If there was one word to describe me, I would say innovative. Every time there is a situation, I see how can we reimagine it and how can we make it better with technology.
Nice, thank you, Matthew. And then, guys, we had a last-minute change to our speakers. Gabby, who just arrived from Jamaica a few days ago, has laryngitis. I think the weather in Malaysia is even hotter than in Jamaica, so she couldn't really speak much. And the superstar Chiho, her colleague from the class of 22, decided to jump in last minute. So thank you so very much for that. Chiho, would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit who you are and one keyword that describes you.
So hi everyone, my name is Shiho and I'm professionally trained as aircraft maintenance engineer. And prior to joining ASB, I worked for Firefly Airlines and I was in charge of the business development team for the engineering services. So if let's say to select one word to describe me, I would say hungry. Not that because I'm hungry now, but I'm hungry for knowledge and that's why I'm here in ASB. Yeah.
Thank you, Chiho. It also helps that if you're hungry in Malaysia, you're never hungry, right?
Yes.
All right, so let's get started right away. Ashley, I'm going to go straight to you. You have a very unique position in this panel because you're both a former student of mine, an alumna, but also an action learning host. So guys, Ashley, the first order of business, she wanted to host an action learning project. And I have to say, we were super excited to have a freshly graduated alumna to become an action learning host. So how would you describe action learning from this perspective? And maybe tell us a little bit about the benefits between the benefits from both perspectives, a host perspective, a student perspective, an alumna perspective.
Yeah, I was just reflecting on the different types of action learning programs that I was a part of, right? And overall, I had the experience of having 5, which was a very exhaustive amount because each time the options come out, I keep taking up different types of experiences. And I think I would just like to share with everyone what some of them looks like. So I'm just bear with me. I think you will find it interesting. And if you guys want to just ask me more questions about it later, like do that. So my first action learning project was with Pascal.
Actually, I think you covered your mic. Did you cover your mic? Did you cover your mic with something? Maybe you have paper. Okay, try again.
This is better? Okay. So my first action learning project was with Pascal, a clothes manufacturing company. And I've never had the opportunity to try manufacturing ever, right? Because I came from insurance background. I was an actuarial science student. I was never given the opportunity to walk freely in a factory, to look at all the workers hands-on, like working on creating the output of the product, measuring the productivity and efficiency, and getting the first-hand experience of understanding the operations. So that was really overwhelming. That was the first time I came in. And just contrasting that to the first year student that took Socar as their first action learning, I wanted to give them the best experience possible. So rather than leaving them out in the dark, I think I quickly came in, presented a lot of information, a lot of deck, so that they won't feel like lost or by themselves, right? And especially because they did all of their action learning virtually. And that was even a tougher experience altogether. And I respect them, and really they impressed me so much, having worked across 3 continents, 3 different time zones over the period of close to 5 months on that project. So as a host, I tried to kind of wrap up all of my action learning projects together and help them navigate through like teamwork, communication, stakeholder management. And I believe that information given from the first get-go does help with them asking better questions, right? Compared to hosts that comes in and tells you, just observe and then ask your questions, which is also good. It's just that um, I wanted to increase the baseline because our project was a little bit more complex and complicated. So given that, it's important to ask good questions, right? That's where I'm trying to get at. But then my second project, we learned really quickly on what to do. And as usual, when you come into your first AL in the future, it's going to sound super intimidating and like very overwhelming. But by the second round, you're in good hands, right? You know what to do already. So it was with Thai Air Asia, and we were working with a RFID implementation. Very different, right? And then the third one was with a startup in Indonesia. And the fourth one was an MBA internship in Italy doing revenue diversification with an oil and gas company. And then the last track was an entrepreneurship track with ASB, our own IEC, right? We call it IEC, Professor Loredana, right? Yeah. So
the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center.
Yeah, we got our hands on with creating our own products and becoming entrepreneurs ourselves. And I think the amazing thing that I've picked up from all of this is that it really gave me the clarity of where I want to be in the future, right? Because I got the opportunity to double my hands and get my hands dirty in so many different industries, in so many different roles, with very different project background. That's the part I appreciate, yeah. And I've learned so much from it. So it's hard to wrap up in like 10 minutes. But, happy to chat more if you guys are curious.
Yes, and also let me just say, I want to encourage everybody who's in this meeting to text in the chat if you have a specific comment to Ashley, Matthew, or Chiho, and they can also type back for you while they are answering while the other ones are answering questions. And also, I want to encourage Matthew and Chiho to jump in if you hear anything from Ashley or the other way around. So Ashley, manufacturing startup. Pretty much you've done it all, and now you are in a startup in a technology mobility space. So one of the things that you said, which I think is really, really important, is that we need to educate our host. And I think because you were so educated by being a student, we didn't have to educate you. But one of the things that we are trying very hard to do at ASB, obviously last year was a lot harder, is not only to educate our students about action learning, but also to educate the host. Because one of the things that we always tell our host is we are not sending you a team of interns to do a task that you ask them to do, but we are actually rather sending you a team of people who are questioning the problem that you stated, who are questioning if this is the right problem that you're stated, if it's the right approach. So let me go to Matthew. Before I do that, can I ask my admin team, Vivian and Hamid? I have people private messaging me that their videos are turned off and they want the videos to turn on. So also, can I ask the participants not to text me directly, but maybe text the ASB admissions host? Okay, I have very little power. I just look powerful, but I actually don't do anything in this meeting but talk. All right. So Matthew, let me come to you. You're a full-time working entrepreneur. One of the reasons why we do action learning for people like Ashley and Chiho is to give you a real opportunity to work with a real company. In your case, you already work with a real company, so we don't need to do that. But what is the experience of a working professional in action learning? Tell us a little bit about maybe the first semester, the second semester.
Sure, Professor. Yeah. So let's go. I think I tried to prepare as much, but nothing I did actually really prepared me for the actual learning experience I had, either with the first or second semester. I think it's an extra challenge, or it's a different kind of challenge for me because not only am I the one who's going to implement the actual learning project, I'm also my own host. So I am my biggest critic. What I had to do was, kind of like always assess everything that we're doing, all the strategies. Am I doing things right? There's nobody really except for my board to validate the directions and strategies we'd be implementing. But the reason I would say that it's a little bit unexpected, Professor, because I mean, I came in expecting to learn so many tools, which definitely happened after like that super intense ops course we had, or we had like 6-hour lessons every day. I mean, I expected to get 100 different tools and then I go back to work and then apply them. But what I didn't expect was not only did I get new tools, I got new perspectives, I got new lenses on how to look at everything. So not only was I seeing things the way I saw them before, I was looking at things from a financial perspective, from the language of money to the language of things, to queue capacity, to how our customers are getting value. All of those things was a little bit overwhelming the first week you're back, because suddenly you're seeing everything that goes on. It's like seeing new colors that you've never seen before. So that was super intense and exciting, but I'm very happy because just in a term, I think I ROI'd first sem's tuition just by the improvements I was able to implement. So that was super fantastic. That was like a really like that was one of those accomplishments that you can really feel. And for second sem, it's even more exciting because now we're working with social entrepreneurship. We're looking at things from the perspective of how we impact as individuals and as businesses the world, right? All the communities, the people around us, the vendors and the environment. And that's another perspective, obviously, that is very important today. Has always been important, but now at least people are opening their eyes to it. So again, it's another challenge, but it's ultimately exciting too.
So just for you guys to know, Matthew is part of the Working Professionals MBA program. They only come to campus every I think 6 weeks or so. Obviously not now during COVID. And their experience in the first semester was a course that I call Learning in Action, where, like Matthew said, for the first course, which was a course in ops with both myself and Professor Fine, the president of ASB, we learned together. We taught the students tools in operations, for example, and then they had to go back to their company and immediately apply these tools and then come back and show us an immediate impact of the tool. So I got a message from Matthew a couple of weeks later and said, maybe I shouldn't really tell you this, but only after ops, I feel like I got a full return on my investment because we did some massive improvement in the company. The second semester, we are now, the entire program is focusing on entrepreneurship because many of us believe that entrepreneurship is a way out of this crisis. So now his class is working on a social entrepreneurship project. And then I want to go to Fabian's question in the chat about the action learning experience. How many of the projects are focused on tech or product management per year? And students choose or they are chosen? So the students choose the project in the sense that at the beginning of each semester, together with my team, we source projects. So we go and talk to companies anywhere from companies like Ashley's, but also, very high, not high, very large multinationals, sometimes startups, sometimes NGOs. But we try to bring a very broad range of companies, and then the students bid on the projects. So you each get a set of points and then you bid on the projects, and then you get assigned to a project, and then you get assigned to a team. So you don't get to choose your team, but you bid on your projects. So every semester it differs very much. And then one thing that I want to say to Fabien is, on purpose, we are trying to create very diverse projects because, like Ashley said, there's no guarantee that you come in a program like ASB and you say, I want to do finance and I'm not interested in anything else but finance. If that's the mentality that you have at the beginning of the MBA, you're going to be disappointed because we are going to put you through situations that are very different than what you wanted. And just like Ashley said, I never walked in a factory before and I didn't know what a factory looks like. I remember Ashley having one of your colleagues, Sherilyn, and Sherilyn said, I came in the MBA thinking I'm going to do finance. I want to do finance. I don't want to do anything but finance. And then her first project was in manufacturing operations. And after that, all she wanted to do was manufacturing operations, right? Hi, everybody. Hi, Kennedy. Hi, Ivan. So what we're trying to do, we're trying to give you a very diverse experience on purpose because we want you to graduate with open eyes. So one of the things that we hear from our action learning, not from our action learning hosts, I'm sorry, from our employers is that a lot of students don't have enough of an experience before the MBA program to validate their career choice. So what they do, they code with a company or an industry for a year and then they move very quickly. So I'll go through all the questions, feel free, but also Ashley, Matthew, and Chiho, feel free to answer some of the questions here. This is everybody's panel. But Chiho, you are a first-year student. You are doing action learning for the first time, and you are doing action learning online. How the hell was that experience, Chiho? So what did we learn about working together for the first time in a multinational team? Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that, with a host that you don't get to meet in person, with colleagues that you don't get to meet in person. Can we still call that action learning?
So last semester, my action learning hall was Sunway Malls. So for those online, Sunway is actually the biggest mall operators in Malaysia. So my teammates are basically from all over the world. One of my colleagues is from Mexico, another one from India, Tunisia, and another one in Kazakhstan. So we never met each other in person. Everything is on Zoom. And because of the internet connection, sometimes we were technically speaking to the black screen. So without any non-verbal cues, so you don't know their emotions. So there were a lot of communication breakdown, and literally we had a lot of quarrels, and we couldn't actually come to some consensus for our projects. So I would say the overall action learning experience is not something that is very pleasant, full of emotions, and that's how we learn and that's how we transform. So I would like to quote a famous quote from Professor Loredana: "The job is easy, the people are not." So the chemistry between the teammates are something that we really need to set a good culture to work with each other, not only dealing with our hosts externally, but internally, you will learn a lot of people skills. Yeah, so that's the biggest takeaway from the entire full virtual or online action learning experience that I had.
And how do we call people skills, Chiho? Do we call them soft skills? We call them smart skills.
Yes.
This is always an exam. You should know that every time we're together, I'm going to ask you a question like it's examination. So Chiho mentioned something really, really important, which is it turns out that a lot of the times when you graduate from an MBA, you're going to get your job because of your sharp skills. So at ASB, we don't use the concept of hard skills because we don't think that these skills are hard. We think that they are sharp because they constantly have to be resharpened. The same way we don't think that people skills are soft skills because there's nothing soft about dealing with people. And what I want to say is that a lot of the employers hire students because of the sharp skills. So you get the job because of the sharp skills, but you keep the job because of the smart skills. So you might be very good at understanding financial analysis and efficiency and operations, but that's not going to keep you the job. The job is going to be capped by smart skills. So we think that smart skills and sharp skills should be together. So to all the questions on Zoom, I want to say that I also have one of our directors here, Sangeeta Matu, who can also answer your questions. But let me go through a little bit some of the questions here. So Yusuf, I already answered your question. Yes, you have what we call a summer associate program, which is a paid internship that we can help you source, but also you're very much responsible for finding something that you really want. So we highly encourage you to find that. It is paid, but it's very much paid in negotiation of the company you find. How does the AL component work for the WP program? Is it mandatory to source a project with the current employer? No, it's not, Manoj. We actually don't want you to do a project with your current employer, but it turns out, and Matthew can speak a little bit more about this, you are so busy working full-time for your company. And I have to say, this is not really a part-time MBA. I mean, it's part-time on paper, but it has a lot of work, right, Matthew? That you can do a project outside of your company, but I'm not really sure your time would allow you to do that. Matthew, what do you say about that? Do you have a lot of time to do a side project?
That's a really interesting question, Prof. Because even if it's a working professional program, it does feel a little bit full time. But it is strategized. I mean, I think the schedule is strategized in such a way that there is still time for work and there's still time for study. It's not like a you're having to choose between either or, and the nice thing about it is the more you learn, the more efficient you get, the more easier it is to balance and manage your time. So it's definitely manageable.
If you're a very high achiever like Matthew, let me just say that.
I don't know.
All right. So can I know the module of I know. So Kwok is asking, can I know the module of this course? I'm interested in international business and marketing. So this is not that topic. The topic about this webinar, it's about the action learning component in this MBA program. But I think if you have a very specific question about the modules, which I assume it's the courses in this MBA program, maybe the ASB admissions team can answer this. All right, Mikhail, this is a really interesting question. I want to come to that. How's your full-time MBA experience beneficial to somebody who has a lot of experience, 5 to 10 years of experience? Ashley, how many years of experience you had before you started ASB? 4. Chiho, how many years?
12 years.
12 years. And
yes.
You still look like a puppy? 12 years. Matthew, how many years of experience you have? 12 years. All right, so Mikhail, it turns out that our students on average have 7 years of professional experience. How is, let's take this question because that's a really good question. Ashley, I'll come to you. How is your full-time experience beneficial to somebody with 4 years of experience? And then I'll go to Chiho and Matthew who are both 12 years.
I like to think of it as, even though I have 4 years of working experience only, during that 4 years, I started my own startup and I was part of a lot of non-profit organizations. So during classes where they have case studies that talks about work culture, talks about organizational behavior, the financial accounting part, whatever topic that was introduced, I always had something that I can apply it to, whether it's in my past work experiences. And even though I had 4 years of work experiences, it was 3 jobs in 4 years. So I did like a jump 3 times. Yeah. So it was a lot, right? And I get to use the case studies to apply to any of the things that I've been involved in. So I've always looked at MBA as a amplifier. I mean, this is a personal thing. I discourage people that just graduated from their undergrad and then jumping straight into MBA, because if you do that without any work experience, you're learning a lot of like technical knowledge that you're keeping as a toolkit to like use someday, but there isn't anything to reflect on immediately unless you've also been super involved in during your high school or university time to have like a part-time job that allow you to have these reflections, right? But for a 12-year experience. And I want to just relate it to one of my classmates, Faisal. He was the most senior person in my class. I think he was like almost 40 years old, over a decade of work experience. And so the questions that he asked in class were very practical because he could almost look back at the 5th year of when he was working and said that, hey, that happened. This tool would have been amazing. And he could immediately see how this was a solution to a problem already. But for the rest of us, we were like, oh, okay, good solution, but I don't see the problem that it's solving immediately unless I'm reading up a lot of case studies. So it is really that amplifier. So the more working experience you have, I feel like really it's better. But for those of you who aren't, then what I would suggest for you to do is really reflect back on the work experiences that you had and kind of break it down, and also read up on a lot of like businesses and case studies. Do that pre-homework. So when you go into MBA, it doesn't feel like, oh, I'm just learning tools, but you can apply this information, this solution into like a clear case study on how it actually will help a business grow. Yeah. I don't know if that answered the question, but yeah.
How about you, Chiho? 12 years of experience. Is action learning teaching you anything, or are you teaching action learning everything?
So basically, I have 12 years of working experience only in aviation industry. And as an engineer myself, I would say the thinking logic of mine is hardwired according to the steps. Like step 1, you do this. Step 2, step 3. So what action learning actually taught me, it's about the diverse learning opportunities in various industry, and also the thinking process could be more creative from different angle, not really hardwired according to steps, can be very unconventional, can be just like a very wild idea from one of my teammates. So to be very frank with you, action learning is actually the component that drove me to sign up for ASB MBA, because I know I'm going to have 5 different opportunities to work with different projects. And that's what I really want in order to diversify my experience and my exposure.
Chiho, there's also questions about you being an engineer, but I tell everybody, don't worry, nobody's perfect.
Yeah,
Matthew, how about you? Well,
sorry.
I'm sorry, Ashley. Go to Matthew, and then I'll come back to you.
Okay.
Yes.
I just want to add what Chiho said. I think one thing also with lots of working experience is the ability to kind of unlearn something, that willingness to unlearn something and then relearn something that will help you see a different perspective, right? And I think maybe Chiho can attest to this as well, because I've seen this in a lot of my colleagues, where they're so set in doing a certain way because it's hardwired in them. But with action learning projects, you're almost forced to unlearn the ways that you have done, because these companies will have their own preferences of doing things, right? So you can't almost come in and like dictate that, like, oh, this is how it should be done. But you have to keep a very open mind in learning about new things. And I think that's also one thing that ALs are perfect for. It forces you out of that comfort zone.
Very well said, Ashley. Not to mention that you work with people from very, very different backgrounds, very different cultures, and also everybody in your team is equal, which is the biggest pain point, I think, in action learning, that there's no boss. So you have to negotiate a lot of the decisions, right? Yeah. Matthew, how about you? This was a really good question, by the way. So can you still learn something? You're already an expert. You're a CEO, for God's sake.
Sure, Prof. And yeah, thanks, Mikhail, for that super interesting question. Actually, before I expound, I want to like tell you a story of my first day of the first 3 courses I got at ASB. So the first day at Quant was the same as the first day of Ops, and was the same as where we did like a preview of systems dynamics by Professor John Sturman. And we were all asked like several questions from all those first days of those classes. And in my cohort where we're working professionals, a lot of the people there were my age, older than me, a little bit younger than me, but had like a decade worth of experience. And it was quite surprising because of all of those questions that were asked, nobody got any answers right. And the point of those questions was actually to show us that, sometimes when we actually look at things from a quantitative nature, a lot of us have like the wrong intuition. We don't follow and really use the right best practices or the right formulas and whatever. You might actually think that you're making the right moves, but in fact, when you look at it from a data sciences perspective, you might be making the wrong choices. So you can imagine with all of us collectively, maybe 100 years of working experience, and we didn't even get a single answer right. It was quite humbling for everyone, including all the finance people and the engineers and me, the entrepreneur, right? So that was an interesting experience. Now, to kind of explain to you, it's the things we learn isn't really just like work harder, do this, basic principles or whatever. ASB is actually is in collaboration and partnership with MIT. A lot of our courses are MIT courses. So when we take a look at things and when we approach everything, everything's approached from a very, mathematical, very quantitative perspective. Even marketing is quantitative, right? We had to do linear regression for marketing. That was like super shocked when I found out that marketing is going to still be math. But
Yeah.
Math doesn't lie. And when you approach things from not just from an intuition or intuitive perspective, and you actually know what types of data to get, how to make the right decisions, how to ask the right questions. And even if you have, like in our cohort, collectively 100 years of working experience, you're going to approach business and every decision, in fact, in your life, at work or at home, quite differently. So yeah, I mean, even if I had 30 years experience, I'd still go through this.
Which is a great answer, because we had somebody here, I'm trying to keep an eye on all the questions, but we had somebody here, Kwok Young, who asked about, do we give training on decision making? Do we give specific training? Is there a course in decision making? No, but we have 30 other courses that are going to influence your decision, anywhere from action learning, who every single day it's about making a decision, internal, external, with yourself, with your team, with your host, with me, which by the way, it's a big stakeholder to manage. So I would say that for me, decision making is not a course. For me, decision making, it's a series of skills, tools, and expertise that you learn in an MBA program. So you make a decision informed, like Matthew said, maybe on quantitative reasoning, along with some people management, stakeholder management, etc. And then somebody else said, what's the difference between a practicum and an action learning project? Ashley, did you have a practicum, or did COVID by then hit and you didn't have a hands-on practicum?
I had a practicum with AirAsia. No,
You did?
I can take this question.
With whom?
Yeah. AirAsia.
What was your practicum like, and how was it different?
I would describe a practicum as a mini action learning project, like a very short version of an action learning project.
A deep dive.
Yeah. I had this joke before I shared with you guys. Like, now I see action learning project as a matrix. Like, so, or this kind of project in this company is like one action learning ALP long, right? And then, or practicum is like a quarter of an ALP. And then some projects was like, okay, this cannot be an ALP. This is like a 3x ALP, right? So you'll take like 6 months long. So you quickly realize that, oh, some projects fit in really well in this ALP structure, but then some doesn't, right? So a shorter version, to me, would be defined as a practicum, because the projects that we only got 1 week to work on it. Actually, less than a week. It was like 5 days, even less, because 4 days on the 5th day we were presenting already. So yeah. But I wanted to kind of touch on what you said just now about Kwok Young's question, right? Is that if you guys are worried that with your amount of work experiences, and if you're like a goal-getter, super ambitious, you feel like you're already smart and like super intellectual, and you're like, oh, what can this like MBA teach me? Trust me, I think a lot of people come into the program with that ego, like, oh, like, let me see what this is about, convince me that I need this. But like in the first semester itself, you will realize how overwhelmed you become, and that overwhelmed feeling, maybe even like that brim of exhaustion and tiredness, you will like learn to appreciate it, and you'll be so thankful for it, because nowhere else in this world is going to push you to that limit to like accentuate that growth, right? Because if you're on your own, you're just going through another company or taking, I don't know, a course on Udemy or Coursera, no one's going to push you that hard, and so you're not going to get that growth, right? In the first semester itself, you're going to grow so much, because each subject you get to control how much you want to learn. So if you think that some subjects were easy, like for example, when I came in, the quant subjects were really simple for me because I did actuarial science, right? So math was like just like a norm, right? It was easy, but there was always like progression examples. So this is like the normal track where all these readings are compulsory, but then the professors will always give you like an optional reading. And trust me, you will never have the chance and the time to finish it, right? All the progression, all the optional readings, the ability for you to kind of like discover more if you're worried that you're already above the baseline, right? Some people come in, they were from marketing background, so marketing to them was super easy. But then if you combine marketing with like, linear regression, like what Matthew said, it becomes a whole other animal, and you're like, wow, I never thought that I could link the both of this. And when you start to do all these different subjects, the more subjects you link together, the 3, the 4, 5 subjects you link together, and then you go to your next action learning project and you're like, wow, I can apply all of this. And this is something that you've never seen before, you've never experienced before. But as you learn, you don't have to wait 2 years to use it. As you learn, you only have to wait 2 months before you get to use it, and you won't forget it because it's immediate. And I think that's the beauty of action learning, right? Is that it happens every semester, so you always get a chance to build on to what you've learned, and it's a gradual process, and you will see the layers. And by the time your last action learning comes around, you get to wrap up and tie everything that you've learned together and select the tools that are relevant, right? Versus using all of it at once. And that's what ASB is trying to teach you. They teach you all the tools, but they also teach you to pick up tools that are relevant for each project.
Thank you, Ashley. I want to talk a little bit about the first semester, and I think both Matthew and Jiho have the experience of the first semester. And I want to say the first semester is very much a turf battle, because like Ashley says, everybody comes in and they were the best and the brightest in their tribe or their category before, and everybody's sort of coming in and like, so what are you going to teach me? Like, not much. I think you're going to learn about, some things. And then it turns out that the first semester is the hardest out of all 5 semesters. And the way I know it is because everybody comes to my office and they complain all the time about everybody else but themselves, right? Because it's everybody else's problem but yourself. And that's why we learn smart skills. And when people come for an MBA because they think we're going to learn linear regression, I say, great, that's going to be the easiest thing you're going to learn in this MBA program. Because it turns out that system dynamics, linear regression, mathematical marketing, it's actually a lot easier to do than dealing with 25 different nationalities and culture and action learning host and faculty and colleagues. And this is where you're going to start to see you being pulled to the sides. We have a question from somebody asking, what about consulting? Do any of our students go into consulting? We actually have been having every year somebody go, some of our students go into consulting with McKinsey. McKinsey has been a successful hiring company at ASB. Somebody else asked, if you don't have an action learning project, if you're a WP student, working professional student, and your host is not willing to give you a project. So there's a massive difference between the WP and the full-times, in the sense that we are not asking you to source a project. We are asking you to work on your existing job. So since Matthew is here, Matthew, in our first semester, we had 3 different applications in your current job, right? We had a marketing, an ops, and the finance, correct?
Yes, Professor.
How did that work? Tell people who are interested in knowing how do we do action learning in the working professional. So you don't have to create a new project, right?
Right. Well, I think nobody knows your job more than you. You understand like the value that you are creating. You understand the complexities of it. So it's not so much just having to figure like a project charter and what to do, how to do it, how is it going to sound impressive or whatever. I mean, just by actually going through the course and getting all of those perspectives, lenses, and tools, you would really. I mean, the way our classes work is we do case studies, right? So we have a case, we go through it, and we take the insights from it, we apply our tools to it. It's even within the classroom, it's still a little bit of action work. So as you go through every day of these classes, you already have an idea of how can you actually apply this to your job. So when you're asked to do a finance or an ops or a marketing project, it wasn't really so hard. I don't think any of my classmates had a hard time figuring it out. They already knew like the 10 things they want to do when they get back to the office. So I think that's the easy part. Now, making sure that has impact in your project within, let's say, 2, 4, 6 weeks will drive, significant measurable impact. I think that's what you should be worried about, right? Not like having to find a project.
Absolutely. We always say this is not about the project, it's not about the grade. All right, you want the grade, great, we'll give you a grade. But at the end of the day is, did you learn something out of it? Can you apply it? Can you use it? Can you connect it to your previous experience and apply it in the new experience? We have somebody who asked an interesting question. Let me put on my associate dean hat right now and one of the founders of ASB and say, Fabian, as the saying goes, not all good things last forever. What's going to happen to the relationship with MIT after ASB ends its collaboration? So the contract that we have with MIT is the longest contract that MIT ever signed in the history of MIT Sloan. MIT Sloan, I'm sorry, not MIT. We signed a 10-year agreement. MIT had signed previously to this agreements with some schools in China, some schools in South America, a couple of schools in Europe, but they were always anywhere between 2 and 5 years. This is the first time they signed a 10-year agreement. I can't believe that I'm saying this. I've been here for 6 years. I only signed up initially for 1.5 years. Look at this, I'm still here. We always ask this question, what's going to happen post 10 years? It's a little bit, let me put it this way, it's a little bit like a marriage where you have the option of opting out. But if both partners in a couple enjoy each other, they find each other valuable, they think that this relationship brings value on both sides, I think we're both incentivized to stay. A lot of the things, and maybe the students can also react to this, a lot of the MIT faculty, they say they find the experience to teach at ASB very interesting because it's a deep dive in Asian culture, but of multinational perspective because our students are so colorful in their background. I think so far both ASB, Bank Negara, the central bank, and MIT have found this partnership to be productive, but also I have to say it depends very much on the students as well. So one of the biggest pressure points for me when we started ASB was when MIT Sloan said, the faculty from MIT Sloan said, we'll come and teach as long as you can guarantee that your students are just as good as our students. And I'm like, okay, you're just MIT Sloan. You've been around for 100 years, of course. You're only #1. Sure, let us find the best students who are equally good to yours. It turns out that if you look really carefully and you're looking for extraordinary and unconventional students, you can find them. And the fact that the MIT faculty keep coming back, and by the way, they don't have to. We pay them equally if they stay at MIT or if they come to ASB. So there really is a massive transaction cost for them to come to ASB. I think it's telling. All right, so how about this? Oh my God, I can't believe that it's already 9:50. For somebody interested in action learning and interested in ASB. Ashley, go first.
Sorry, I didn't catch that. My line got lost a little bit. What was this question?
I'll turn off my connection too. Do you have any final words of advice for somebody interested in action learning, in ASB? What would you say?
I would say that this will not be a decision that you'll regret if you do it. I know it sounds so cliche, like I'm trying to convince you to do it, right? But I've seen so many MBA programs out there, and a lot of times people ask me this question like, why ASB? And to me, the action learning project like makes it stand out from the rest. And because it's so good and so important to a person's learning, I actually emulated ALP into an organization that I'm leading. It's called Emerging Leaders Asia. And because I only served as president for 1 year, I took up the ALP element and I put it into the organization and we started doing it. And I'm a big advocate for it, which was why I started becoming a host and I wanted to do more. But I think one thing that I learned the most from ASB's ALP projects is the ability to experiment different leadership skills. Before I came into ASB, even though I had a lot of leadership experiences, it was all coming from a very top-down approach. I was a very assertive, dominant person and always wanted my voice to be heard the most. Always thought that I was good at delegating and inspiring and motivational, right? Which, it served me in some organizations. But when I came into ASB, I realized how lack of a leadership component that I have is that the humility part, right? The ability to kind of like soundboard with people, the ability to experiment more servant leadership. And I got to experiment it more than 5 times because not only do we have action learning teams, we have study teams. And then each project in within a subject, sometimes you also get to pick your own teammates. And when you're assigned homeworks, you work with different people. So from there, you really get to discover yourself and experiment the smart skills component, right? Because even though, let me just tell you, the sharp skills given, whoever you are, wherever you are right now, let me just tell you, if you enter, you're going to be overwhelmed, right? No matter how smart you are, like Mensa or like wherever, right? The sharp skills given. But I think what I also want to emphasize on is the smart skills, because like somebody asked about decision making, right? The smart skills part, like inevitably just happens, right? And just be ready to change, like as an entire person. It almost feels like a clean slate. You come in and you get transformed. And I will say one thing is that when I applied for my job in Socar as chief of staff, I was contending with 2 other classmates, and I really wanted the job. I mean, it was during pandemic, right, that I got the job. And I went into the room. I prepared a business case that took me about 5 days. I came into the room, the CEO asked me a question, and I was already super prepared, but he asked me something that I couldn't answer, right? I couldn't answer it, but I didn't just sit there and go like, I don't know, right? Because a lot of times as a student, you will not know everything. Just like when I was in the interview room, I didn't know how to answer him. But because I was very good at navigating stakeholders, I was very good at kind of like admitting that I don't know in a way where I was still value adding. He actually said this to me, and I remember I was like, it's either I don't get this job or that I get this job because I was honest, right? So I said I didn't know, but these are my thought processes. And he said this to me. He said, you know what? I like you. You're coachable. And that kind of took me aback, like coachable, like what does that mean? But I think what that means is that throughout the whole action learning process is that hosts rely on us on a perspective, even though we know nothing about their industry. We clearly don't know more than them, but they still trust us for our opinions, for our perspective, right? So it taught me humility in the most beautiful way. And I would say, honestly, that was probably part of the reason why I got the job, because he said I was coachable, and I was willing to share my thought process with him. And that was something that I learned in AL, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I have to say, when Ashley came into the program, we knew her before from Lean, and we were like, she's going to be a troublemaker. And she was from day one, in the sense that she always challenged things, she always questioned things, she asked the hardest things. But at the same time, she was a troublemaker because she asked the hard questions, but she was also part of the questioning process. Matthew, any words of advice for people interested in the WP and especially the action learning part?
Sure. Well, I think in one of the, I think it was the immersion first day, Professor, where you kind of asked us all, right, why are we here? And we better know the answer to that, because if we don't, we can just go home now. I think that's definitely one of the things that everyone should ask themselves as to why they want to go through this. Because it's going to be one of the hardest things, I think, that you may have to do. Although it doesn't feel that way, because it's still super fun and super rewarding, I think, mostly. But it is very difficult. And the thing about action learning is, we're learning all the best practices and leading edge research on how to manage businesses from marketing to finance to whatever. But when you're asked to immediately apply that, all those things you've learned, that's when you really get to reflect whether these things really resonated with you. It really tests your knowledge, whether you just know the concepts or can you actually do it. That takes everything to a whole new level. And don't come back to class when you haven't, right? So it's definitely intense. If you really, really want to learn all these things and upgrade your business skills from all sorts of subjects, this is it. But it's not going to come easily. This is not like an easy journey. So you better be prepared.
Thank you, Matthew, because proper prior preparation prevents poor performance. Chiho, I know that your connection is not very good. Mine neither. I think the weather in Kuala Lumpur is very stormy. But if you're still online, Chiho, any final words that you have for our colleagues here and the future colleagues of yours?
Yeah, I still can hear you, Professor. Yeah, I'm thinking if you are looking for something that is easy or perhaps not so challenging, then action learning is not for you. So be prepared for a very emotional and challenging journey ahead, and just immerse in the learning experience, and just be open to all the opportunities, and be vulnerable to your teammates, and just enjoy the overall journey in your action learning.
Thank you, Chiho. Let me just end on that note. When we started the ASB in day one, which was January 5th, 2015, we presented the concept of ASB to a bunch of very senior people from Bank Negara, from MIT Sloan, and also a lot of people from the industry. And one of the people from the industry said in front of everybody, guys, he said, you know what, I'm not interested, I'm out. I don't really think that the world needs another MBA. There's so many overpaid, overpriced, over-arrogant MBA graduates out there. Why should I back up this school? And we said, you're absolutely right. Trust me, I deal with them on a daily basis. We're going to make this different. And we actually put humility as part of our admissions process. I think for those of you who are going through the admissions process, we're looking for humble people. And why is that? It's very much because of what Ashley said, right? If you're not coachable, what are you doing here? Believe it, even people like me can still learn things. Granted, not very often because I'm always right, Matthew? But it turns out that you actually learn things from each other, right? You learn things from each other. You learn things from something more than anything, which we call the transformative experience. So when this colleague of ours challenged us and said, I don't need arrogant, overpaid people who take a very long time to apply in action the things they learned 2-3 years ago in their MBA program, we said, all right, that's a really solid observation. Therefore, we're going to build a program that is transformative, not only for the company that our students will join, but especially for the students who go through this process. And what a better way to be transformed that by doing it, like Ashley said, 5 times in 5 different industries with 5 different teams, with 5 different hosts, with the same faculty, but still it's going to be transformative. So I'm gonna wrap it up here. I was trained by the Swiss to be on time. Thank you for the overwhelming amount of really solid questions. We're super happy that you joined us today. We're all on LinkedIn, so you can connect with us on LinkedIn. I think Ivan already sent you an invitation, Ashley. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Partha. Please stay in touch with us. We are, for a reason, transformative and principled. We are, for a reason, extraordinary and unconventional, and we will always stay very innovative. So I hope that you will join us. I hope that you will learn from us. Thank you very much, everybody. Good night, good morning, have a great day. Thank you all.
Bye, guys. Nice meeting everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you once again, Ashley. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Chiho. And very big thanks to the admissions team who put this event together. Thank you. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Professor.
everyone. Bye.